Hi, guys. Welcome to the Simple Doesn't Mean Easy podcast. We are here every Monday working at simplifying things in our lives, one day at a time, one simple step at a time. I'm your host, Michelle Visser, and today we're going to talk about how I figured out many years ago a way to not only garden for free, but to actually make some money on top of it. So I raise all of our own food without any expense, and I make not a lot. Believe me, I'm not going to break the bank or be able to write home about it, but I make quite a few $100s on top of that. So today we're going to talk about how I do it and just run down tips, tricks, things you might want to know if you want to do this yourself. So I'm glad you're here. Before we dive into this episode, I want to talk about meat for a second. Did you know that unless you personally know your rancher or your farmer who is raising the meat that you're eating, it most likely came here on a large barge from who knows where across the ocean. And it was repackaged in some way here in the US, so it could be labeled as a product of the US. And if you're paying for the really best cuts because they have some fancy label on them, most likely you are being greenwashed because these terms don't mean a darn thing. Even if you do find a local farmer, you might not know. In fact, they might not know if their animal feed is being sprayed with glyphosate before it gets to their farm. Go to 99counties.com because there I have a great solution for you. It's a new platform that is connecting consumers like us who genuinely care about our food directly to regenerative farmers across the Midwest who are doing things right. Use code solely rested at 99counties.com and take $30 off your first order. Isn't that great? Or go to solelyrested.com/beef. I link to everything there and I share with you some tips and insights and delicious recipes for preparing pasture raised meat. solelyrested.com/beef. BEEF. So, this is something that I decided I would give it a try. I don't know if it's been 3 or 4 years ago now. And it wasn't something I had planned. But basically, what I do is I grow more seedlings than I need to plant. And I sell those seedlings to some neighbors, some friends, but mainly people that are repeat customers. And I found some of them through Facebook groups or word of mouth. So I, when I realized, first of all, that I did see a nice little profit, and when I realized this is going to sound weird, but how much fun it was, I thought, oh, I'm going to do this every year. Why not? And the fun part was like little 7-year-old Michelle coming out on the day that I arranged for pickup. It was a Saturday. And typically things like this would kind of irritate me, just that, okay, so I've wasted or quote unquote lost my whole Saturday because I have to be home. I have to be waiting for these people to come. Some might not show. But it really wasn't like that. I was busy doing gardening stuff anyway. They were all great about texting or calling me and telling me when they were coming and pretty much arriving when they said they would. And one or two who wound up not being able to come were fantastic about just picking it up later. We do have an enclosed front porch where it was very easy for me to leave their plants. And over the years, it's been some people that actually are weeks later picking up their plants. So the only negative to that is I do need to still keep watering them and making sure, they're not dry, making sure it's not too hot on the porch while they're sitting there. But I do have a place that I can put it and I can organize them in boxes that are labeled with the people's names. So if people don't come at a set time to pick them up, the pickup isn't even really a hassle. So how do you decide what seeds you should grow? Personally, for me, it's almost all tomatoes. The first year, that's just what happened. And I realized how popular they were. So, pretty much that's what I grow. I do grow a few other things for people that request it, but the tomatoes are the big hit. I think it's just a very popular plant for people to plant. People like having tomatoes, but I think the real draw is that I only plant heirloom organic tomatoes. And I plant quite a large variety. So people really have fun thinking about the variety and choosing for often it's something different they want to try this year. But a lot of people also are regulars that they know they want this, and this kind of tomato. And then often they'll want to try a new kind as well. But of course, this doesn't mean that you should grow all tomatoes. If possible, if you know right now some people who might want to pay you to grow their seedlings, poll them, poll your audience, see what they seem most interested in planting in their garden this year and start there, grow what is in demand for sure. You can even create interest before you start to plant. You can even take pre-orders for that matter. It might be something that you find you have to wait until the second year to do this once you have kind of an established list of customers, but maybe you know enough people right now that would be interested in this, or maybe you have time to reach out to local gardening Facebook groups. Actually, gardening might not be the best way to go because probably those people are pretty into doing it themselves. Maybe just a local community Facebook group for young moms or for retired people or just people in your community, whatever. And, see if there are people on there who would like to grow something, but A, don't want to do it themselves or don't have the ability or the space to. And B, want things that they can't find at their local garden store. Or C, they really want to support local. They really want to help a small business person like yourself. And they want to know, where their plants were grown, and they like that. So maybe a combination of all of those reasons, you can find your customer base. And if you can get their emails, then you can have a whole wait list ready and you can send out the emails and you can start it way ahead of time in January, even to build up excitement, to start getting people's list. And you can actually plant exactly what they want you to plant, if you're that prepared. I've never been that prepared. I honestly sell what extras I have. I still do that to this day, and it works fine for me. But an email list would be a really good thing if you want to do this seriously and sell hundreds of seedlings and make a really sweet profit. An email list is the way to go. I love Flowdesk, and I actually have a code. I'm not sure what the code is, but that saves you money. If you want to go start a Flowdesk account, it's so cheap per month and it's such a great platform, so easy to use. And you can send out really nice emails, quite professional looking, for just, I don't even know, not much per month. And you can have their list of their emails all organized and you can have your emails all ready to go, schedule them out so they're all ready. So I'll put that information in the show notes. If that's something you want to do, I will link to my favorite email provider and give you that discount information. So when do you need to plan? It's a great idea to figure out when, how long until you can plant in the ground. And then typically 8 to 10 weeks before that is when you want to get your seeds started. I would suggest, this is what I do. I plant what I want for myself. And unless somebody really requested it and they're going to be a good customer and you want to grow what they're asking for, except for that, I really think sticking with what you know is best and what you like, because then nothing's going to go to waste. If you do plant more than you can sell, not a problem. Just stick them in some extra area that you have in your own gardens. Also, planting what you know, in my opinion, is so important because I do think that's a huge draw for my seedling customers, that they know I know everything about these plants that I'm selling. And when they're trying to choose what varieties they want, I have the answers to their questions and I can really help guide them to what might be the best varieties for them. With tomatoes, there are so many options and there are so many things that different people want from their tomatoes. You'd be surprised, they want to make sauce with it, or this is a very common thing. I want the best BLTs that I can have. What tomatoes are best for that? And then I can give them options. I can say, well, here are 4 of them that are really meaty and so big that they're going to fill your sandwich, and they're coming 4 different colors. Or, here's what the differences are. This one's a little sweeter taste, or whatever the case. So plant what you know, and I think you're going to sell a whole lot more because you're going to be knowledgeable and be able to help them when it comes to choosing what they want to purchase from you. Also, this might sound really silly, but I highly recommend you make sure you label everything and do it well. Even if you think, I'm going to remember all this, you put all of your different varieties in different color cups or whatever it is that you do, or you're only planting 3 different ones, so you're going to remember. Trust me, there are going to be ones that you get confused, especially if you have to up pot. I don't always have to every year, but most years there are quite a few of them that I do have to move to a bigger container before it's time to sell them. And then things can get really confusing if you're not labeling them well. And also, when you're labeling them, it took me a few years to realize this, but I realized my chicken scratch really wasn't the best way to do it. And I also have a lot of abbreviations that I'll use because when I'm working on getting my seedlings planted, I may be planting hundreds at a time, and my hands are dirty and I'm kind of in a rush. And I will, first of all, just scribble the information with a Sharpie on the pot or cup. And second of all, I'll abbreviate. Like if it's sunrise, is it called sunrise butterfly? Now I'm hesitating. Sunrise, one of the cherry tomatoes that I plant. I'll just put sun on it, and I know what that means. But when the customer comes to take them home, they feel so much better if, first of all, they can actually read your chicken scratch. And second of all, it's the full name. It makes a big difference to them. And it's kind of a pain to do it later because your plants are top heavy and they could easily kind of fall over or even break branches if you're not really careful, if you're labeling them at the end before the customer's coming to pick up. Plus, you're going to have to scratch off your chicken scratch and write it neatly. And that doesn't look nice. You want to give them a great experience. So from the beginning, take the extra few seconds per plant, write neatly, and write out the full name, and they will be very thankful because then they can go home and look up that name and remember all those things you told them about that particular kind of plant, and they can get all the details they need from Google about that plant. So it also will save you in the long run because they won't be calling you back and going, what's this scratch writing that I think might say S something N? You're not going to have that. You're not going to have any confusion. Fourth tip, plant in containers you don't want back. Um, Again, it seems obvious, but that first year I was using whatever I had because I ran out and I had to up pot things. And I'm like, oh, let me go see what I can find. And I thought, oh, well, I know so and so and so and so, or so and so lives right down the road. So I can just ask them to bring these back. And they very well might have been good intentions. They might have had every plan of returning it, but nothing comes back. They never do. Just realize that. Don't even bother asking or thinking they will come back. So do not use pots that you are going to be sad that you're never going to see them again. The best thing that I can suggest, the best tip I have about what to plant them in, I have found the large solo cups. It can be a no name. I always do get a no name, in fact, are the best. I will put them in a tall stack and use a very long drill bit and just go one foul swoop through the bottom with a long drill bit and get all the holes in it because you do need a drainage hole. And then it's perfect. It's easy to write on. It actually is a nice presentation when they pick it up because all the cups are, orderly and they look nice. Your writing's on there nice and neat. So, and it's really cheap. It's the best way I have found to do it. And the fifth tip I have for you is to use good quality everything. Use good quality seeds, use good quality soil. And there's really 2 reasons. First of all, these plants are going to be with you for at least 8, probably 10 weeks. And you want them to look really great when it's time for your customers to take them home. If you're not using quality soil, if you didn't plant using quality seeds, a good plant, it probably isn't going to look that great when it's time for them to take them home. And they're not going to feel good about paying you the top dollar that you're going to ask. You should ask for top dollar because you have invested a lot of effort and time into this and you have grown a high quality plant. But you have to start with high quality if you want to have the end quality results. So get the organic, the high quality dirts and plants, and you will in the end make more money, and your customers will be happier. So, what do you need to get started? I know I've already mentioned some of them, but let's go down. I have a list here. I first of all, I can't recommend a really great growing system high enough. It's so important if you're able. For years and years, I grew all my seedlings just in natural light, any space that I could find on bathroom counters, window ledges, tables in my living room. I made do, and that's okay. But I will tell you, the first year that I finally upgraded to a really nice system, and this isn't expensive, I'll explain to you what it is, but it made an unbelievable difference. I can't even tell you. Like, my plants were not leggy. That's one big problem you will have. If you don't have a good lighting system, a good growing system, you're going to have leggy plants because they're reaching for the sun. And that's going to make them tall and thin and not very strong when you put them in the ground. Even if you are hardening them off correctly the last week or two before you put them in the ground, they're just not going to be as strong. And they also are definitely not going to grow as mature as they would if they had a good light system. So if you're able to set up a good system, for me, it's very simply, you know what, I'll put a link in the show notes that will not only itemize for you in writing, an article that itemizes everything we're talking about today. We have to pause this episode though, because I need to ask you a question. Did you know there is a way to grow amazing fresh food with no worries of weeds, pests, or any concern about poor weather conditions? In fact, you can grow food year round, literally in your kitchen, no matter where you live. I'm talking about sprouts. They are nutrient dense food packed with vitamins and minerals, fiber, protein, and antioxidants. And I love that there are all different types of seeds you can sprout. So you get varying nutrient profiles with all the different seeds that you sprout. I've put together a really helpful resource for you. Go to solelyrested.com/sprout, SPROUT. And there I'm going to explain maximum benefits, give you lots of insights into how you can sprout well, give you tips and tricks to avoid any problems, tell you what sprouts to use and how to use them. All of it, solelyrested.com/sprout to get that resource. And there I will introduce you to True Leaf Market. I mean, I've been telling you about True Leaf Market for years and years because I love this company. They've offered you a really sweet discount available for a very limited time. Go check it all out at solelyrested.com/sprout. Also, let's talk about tea for a second. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I absolutely love making my own tea blends for a whole lot of reasons. But the truth is, I don't grow my own tea plant. And even though I grow a lot of herbs and other things to add to my tea blends, I don't grow things like Assam and Nilgiri and rooibos. In fact, rooibos only grows in one part of the world, one specific part of South Africa. Anyway, my point is, I couldn't make tea blends without Positively Tea. And if you want to go check out my favorite blends, go to solelyrested.com/teas, Teas. I also have a special savings code waiting for you there. And this company, I can't tell you enough how much I love everything about this company. I'm so thankful that they're sponsors of this podcast. So please go give them some love. And by the way, I have 3 tea blends right at the top of that page right now that I think is what has kept me healthy all winter. I'm enjoying these 3 blends. They've been boosting my immunity and they're absolutely delicious. Seriously, go check it out. Solely Rested, SOULY rested.com/TEAS. But it also will have a picture for you of what I'm talking about. It's one of those, I'm sure there's a better name for it, like a metal utility shelf that you can get at any home goods, Home Depot, Lowe's kind of store. Um, and it has the adjustable shelving. So you can, if you wanted to, move the shelves up and down as needed. But I don't like that hassle because it's really kind of hard to move those shelves, even though it's supposed to be kind of easy. So instead, I will use a chain and eye hook system to move my lights. So the lights are mounted underneath each shelf. and the plants are underneath those lights on the shelf below. Sometimes I will prop plants up with something underneath of them, like wooden boards or boxes. But more often than not, it works better for me to move the lights. I can move the lights down all in one level to get them all down close to the plant. Or as the plants grow, some are going to grow a lot faster and taller than others. I can organize them by height and then put my light at a diagonal so that it's the same amount, about an inch or so, above the top of the plant, all the way from one end of the shelf to the other. As the plants get taller, the light goes higher, if that makes sense. What else do I want to tell you about that? You do want a good, like a drainage tray to line your plants up on so you can water them and not have fear of the water spilling anywhere. The great seeds, I can't stress that enough. You need great seeds with a really good germination, or you're going to have a whole lot of it. There's nothing worse than having a whole tray that you've been watering for 2 weeks and you finally realize these seeds aren't going to germinate, or only 30% of these seeds germinated, and now all the rest of them I've been tending to for weeks with no reward. And now if I go and replant them, that plant's not going to be mature when it's time to sell them or get them in the ground. So it's so frustrating if you don't have good seeds with a great germination rate. And in the article that I link, I go into that and I link to some great seeds, and there's even a discount code available for you. So go check out this article. Compost. You want good quality compost and potting soil. I will mix the two. If you just use potting soil, your plant's going to dry out very quickly and it's not getting the nutrients that compost provides. So I will mix them in a 50-50 ratio and choose good quality. The disposable cups with the drainage hole, you definitely need something like that. I also will get some larger disposable options as well for those times that I do need to up pot. I was going to say up pot some of my plants. And the good news with that is you do have to spend more money on those pots than the small throwaway cups, but I charge more for the bigger plants. So as the plants grow and I do have to put them in a bigger pot, right away the price goes up a good percentage. So you make back the cost of that pot, but you also tend to make a little bit more in the long run. And customers love it. When they come and they get this really big plant, they just love it because that gets them a great start when they're getting it in the ground. Obviously, you need Sharpies for labeling your plants, or some sort of a labeler if you would prefer that, but I just use a Sharpie. And when you get close to pickup time, you're going to need, I don't know what I just said, you are going to need some strong boxes that you can use as trays or storage containers for them to take their plants home in. And of course, you're going to need quite a variety of sizes because some customers might just get 2 or 3, and some customers might get a dozen plants. So I start collecting those about 4 or 5 weeks before it's going to be time for the seedlings to go to their homes. And I just keep them piled up in the barn and have them ready when I need them. When you send your plants home with your customers, what do you need? Obviously, the boxes. And I will make sure I have some packaging tape on hand because I find it's a really great way to secure the cups or the plant pots to the boxes. So I'll just put the tape, stick it on the cardboard, wrap it around half of the plant, and then stick the other end of the tape to the cardboard. And you can do that all around the whole edge of your box. And you don't want them to have the bad experience of getting home and realizing half of their plants have broken. And that could happen if you don't have them nicely secured. So I think the packaging tape works well for that. Also, brown bags can be handy for them to transport them in. If you cut off the top, you can use them as kind of a tray. So if you have the big full-size grocery brown bag, cut it down halfway and kind of fold the top over, then you have a nice little way to hold about 4 plants Of course, that's really not ideal unless there's two people in the car and somebody can hold it on the way home because it is flimsy, but it definitely does work. And I try to keep old newspaper on hand because that's great to shove in around the cups, whether you have that packaging tape or even if you don't, this paper can help keep your plants upright. So I'll shove that paper in all around the cups. And of course, I didn't think of this the first year. You need to have change on hand the day that customers are picking up their plants because you want to be able to give them back exact change. So, things to think about if you're going to like itemize your inventory of seeds and what you need to have on hand. First of all, what plants do I want to plant in my own garden? And second, what plants I might want extras of. Something always dies once they go in the garden. So I always plant extra seedlings for my own garden. And that's a great thing to then be able to sell. I tend to plant my garden a week or two ahead of any neighbors. I'm a little bold with that. Up here in New England, people tend to be really cautious about when they plant because they don't want to get a frost. If a frost comes, I'm going to be out there with a ton of buckets and sheets and blankets and covering my plants. And it's worth it to me because I want to get a head start on my garden. But the good thing is when it comes to selling the plants, that gives me a couple weeks to have my garden in and to know if I need any extras. So it's another great reason that I love to plant for selling the same things that I plant for myself. And then if I need the extras in my garden, I get precedence. I get preference if those plants have not already been accounted for. And then when it comes time to sell them, if you have emails, that's a great time to send out an email. I have this many left of these different varieties, who would like some? And that tends to be when I sell the most, right there at the end. And I just itemize what I have left that I wound up not needing for my garden. And I also, well, what does this mean? I'm looking at my list. Number 3 of what to itemize is what plants I wanted to set aside to gift to my daughter or to friends who may not have the means to buy them. Okay, so I inventoried or I itemized enough seeds to actually have extras for that too. And then here's an important thing. How do you decide what to charge? The best advice I can give you is to go to a high quality I don't know what 2 words I almost just said. Go to a high quality nursery and see what they're charging. You definitely don't want to go to a Walmart because they're going to have lower prices, but the plants are pretty freaking lousy too. So you want to go someplace that's selling high quality plants and see what they're charging. If your plants look nice and healthy, most potential customers are willing to pay slightly more than they would spend at that high quality nursery. That's what I find. Especially if you're offering varieties that are really hard to find or that they aren't always sure are organic at the nursery, but they know they are if they're buying them from you. It's a difficult game to play to decide ideal, the ideal price. Like I fluctuate, and when it comes to a week or two after most of my customers have already come and I still have some plants left, of course, I mark it down, I bundle them up, and I say, does anybody want, for $10, you can get these. And I tell them what's left or whatever. But I also charge a range of prices depending on the maturity of the plant. It's all arbitrary, but it works for me. I will ask a customer what they want when they're calling and they're saying, I want this many tomatoes or whatever. And I ask them, do you want large ones? Based on what I have, it might depend. I might not have large ones, so I don't offer that. But if I do, I say, well, do you want the largest or medium size, or would you like the tiny seedlings for only $1 each? And you can get an idea for what they say. But typically I will charge, at least $12 for a large seedling. Now, this all depends on where you live, of course. And for the average one, anywhere from maybe 8 to 10. And then for the small ones, somewhere around 5 to 7. Except, like I said, sometimes you just have tiny little seedlings, which personally, I would never put in my ground even, because here in New England, they're not going to grow to maturity. But I have customers that's kind of what they want. And I think sometimes it's because they want to plant their garden with their grandkids and they want a bunch of those little ones for the grandkids to plant, which I think is so cute. Um, so then my plan is that I'll downsize the plants if anybody kind of balks a little at the price. But honestly, I don't know if that's ever happened, but that's always my plan, that if, so I'll ask them what they want and then I will give them a total. If they say, oh, I'd like all large ones and I want 6 of them, okay, here's your total. If they're like, oh, that's a little too much, then I can just, make sure that they know I'm pulling out the healthiest plants for them. And I reiterate that they're heirloom and they're organic. And then, we come to agreement with the price. So maybe I'll give them a medium instead of a large, or whatever the case. But it tends to work out. And with each customer, you can handle it differently. But what else on my notes? A few of my customers didn't come through until my final quote unquote advertising, which was just posting to a few local Facebook groups. I don't actually do any ads. At that point, I had tended the plants an extra 2 weeks beyond my first sales, and factoring in my extra time spent, this is the first year, the notes that I made, factoring in my extra time spent with caring for and hardening off these plants and all the facts that they were considered, and the fact that they were considered taller now, considerably taller, I upped the ranges, and I, at that point, charged a few dollars more for each different size range. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you spent more time on it and they're a more mature plant, charge them a little bit more at the end. It could go either way. Like I said earlier, you also might want to charge less at the end to get rid of them. So, your call, but there's definitely profit involved. And here's what my profit looked like the first year. I haven't kept track of the profit any year since, but I have the numbers for the first year. Not a whirlwind entrepreneurial effort by any means, but I sold the first year 59 plants to 10 customers. And my total profit after my expenses was $401. Don't forget that $1. So, that very much paid for my garden that year. And I had, I think, maybe $100 or $2, profit after paying for all my expenses in my own gardens. So there you have it. There's all my thoughts. There's everything I could think of to tell you if you want to not only plant your gardens for free, grow your own food for free. So, this will cover the cost of your seeds. It will cover the cost of any compost you might need to buy, any of that organic fertilizer that I love. I'll link all of my garden suggestions, tools, etc. in the show notes if you want to know more about that. But doing this will pay for all those expenses and hopefully make you a profit to boot, depending on how many seedlings that you want to plant. So there you go. That is it for today. Thanks for listening. Go to solelyrested.com/sprout to check out that sponsor, one of the sponsors for today, and to sign up for the Sprout information. Go to solelyrested.com/podcast and sign up for the email that will have all the links and information to the article and more that we talked about today. solelyrested.com/podcast. Okay, that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. Remember, it's easy to forget how blessed we are to live this life. So enjoy the simple, everyday efforts. It's not easy, but it's a good life.